Hi fellow readers, today I'm going to talk about the Book of Heroes. Now this is by a Japanese author, but this is more just middle grade fantasy fiction that's been translated as opposed to light novel. I would not consider this a light novel. I consider this just middle grade fiction fantasy. This book is complicated for me. This book follows Yuriko, who at the start, her brother has disappeared after a stabbing incident at school where he murdered one of his classmates and severely injured another, and then disappeared. So her family is in a bit of turmoil. The police are investigating, trying to figure out what happened. Nobody seems to have any answers about why Hiroki would suddenly stab and murder one kid and just plain out stab the other, severely injure the other. The school is claiming there's no reason for it. There's no instances of bullying. But if that's the case, like what happened? And I don't know, upon her trying to deal with what's going on, Yuriko goes into her brother's room. So upon entering Hiroki's room, Yuriko ends up meeting a talking book, Aju, who is kind of the first first thing to give her some clues about what happened to Hiroki, and says that she could get more answers and help from his friends, who are other books that happen to live at her, we'll just call him her uncle's house. Like he was semi-related to them, and the fact that her family, like her grandparents' family, had adopted him, but he wasn't a biological relative. But he has recently passed away and left his home to Yuriko's family, like in the remaining family on that side that was left. And so he was book collector, and Aju tells her his friends that are there might be able to help more. All comes down to a basic story where Hiroki was kind of tempted by this book character, well-known book character of the hero, and the hero is the good side of this character, but there's also a parallel side called the King in Yellow, and really Hiroki ends up turning more toward the King in Yellow when his heroic nature turns into murdering the kids in class. And they sort of tell Yuriko that if there's any chance of saving Hiroki, that she must become the all-cast and seek out to reseal the King in Yellow. It's kind of an easy way to say it. And so she does set out. She goes to the Nameless Land. She officially becomes the all-cast. She's given a servant who she ends up naming Sky, and Aju ends up turning into a mouse in order for her to easily carry him around, I guess you could say. And together they start investigating why Hiroki did what he did, and if there are ways to get him back. It's a really loud vehicle. And they're told that there will be allies that they might meet along the way called the Wolves, and the Wolves will fight for the all-cast in order to help reseal the King in Yellow. And they do end up meeting one. His name is Ash, and Ash is an interesting character that sometimes says things that are harsh, but he doesn't seem that bad, and so they carry along. And essentially it just becomes an investigation of why Hiroki did what he did and how to find Hiroki, and can they bring him back. And there are a lot of warnings throughout the book that they might not be able to, because as the King in Yellow goes, he is able to, I think, I can't remember what they call it. He like uses the vessel, but anyway, Hiroki has become the last vessel. And so they believe that his being will be used up as the King in Yellow becomes whole. So there keeps being warnings to Yuriko that she might not be able to save her brother, but of course she hopes to. Although even in looking that, like, you know that there's not going to be an easy resolution for Hiroki, because even if she gets him back, he has murdered one boy and severely injured another. And so even if it wouldn't be like a death sentence or life in prison, like I think because of the whole minor status, if I'm correct, I think he would face jail time, but I don't think he would face death. I think usually in Japan, if there's a death case, like, you'll be sentenced to death, but I don't think they do that for minors, if I'm remembering correctly. But anyway, but, you know, either way, he would still have to deal with the repercussions from murder. So I think there's always like this dark feeling as you're reading this, because there can't be just a happy resolution regardless of what happens. There can't be a happy, easy resolution due to the events that have transpired. But yeah, this is really hard for me, because I did like the book and I really liked the resolution. I liked the ending. But I also feel like I forced myself to get through this book, and that sounds so bad. I don't think it's bad. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was too slow paced for me, because a lot of it was like I guess I kept waiting for more action to happen, because you're kind of like, they're on a quest. They got to defeat the King in Yellow and get him resealed, and it was much more slow paced story development, like just slow undercurrents of story development. I also kind of worked out the big reveal for the ending, so like that wasn't some great shock for me. But that being said, I still did really like that. I liked the resolution. I liked how it ended. So I can't really dock points for that. And I do think this has potential for a lot of other readers. I know for me, I do like, not always, but I do tend to like, especially if there's like a story like this that's so, this seems like it should not take long to read. And it really shouldn't. But it did. I also think that part of what threw me off wasn't just the pace, it's the, can you see how it's formatted on the page? There's not enough white space for me. And I know that sounds weird, but it made it so that I had to slog through the book. Because the words take up like the whole entire page. You don't even get the nice white space really at the top, because they put the chapter and page information along the side margin, and it's a really narrow side margin as well. I could have dealt with this book being like more pages, but more white space. And I think it would have helped the pace of the book to be better for me. Because it kind of hurt my eyes. And I just felt like it looked cumbersome to me. And so it didn't seem inviting and like I wanted to read it. And I know that's weird, and it's an individual preference thing. And I almost feel like if I were listening to the audiobook of this, I might have enjoyed it more, because I just felt too daunted by the layout. Like, look at that. It's like a solid blank, like just block of text. It's just a solid block of text. And it got to me. It got to me. And I love books. I'm a huge reader. as you might have you know, determined if you've seen any of my videos. But there was just something about it made it so hard for me to get through, but it was so good. Like I like the overall story, the messaging, and I think the writing was fine and the translation was fine. It was just the format made it difficult for me. And the pace might have been a little slow for me because I do tend to like fast-paced. I can read slow-paced books, but I do tend to like fast-paced books as like my preferred, like, favorites are usually a bit faster paced than this book. Yeah, it was an interesting plot though. I liked it enough. I think Yoriko was a good character. I liked her and seeing her development and finding her strengths and her story. I liked that aspect. So I would still recommend it. Just be warned if you have problems with like solid text like that. Like it did hurt my eyes. Like, I'm sorry, publishers here. Haikasoru? Familiar with them, but I'm sorry. But it hurt my eyes. But I'd still recommend the Book of Heroes. And I may check out Miyuki Miyabe's other work, was it Brave Story? Because I've heard good things about that one too. Like I wouldn't not read more from Miyuki Miyabe. It was just this one was a little bit hard to get through. And I think a big part of it was the format for me. So that's it for this video. Until next time, bye.